In our societies, we use the word success a lot. And we think we know just what it means: money, status, fame, and power. But take a look in the dictionary, and things start to look, thankfully, a lot more complicated. Because success is, in truth, rather more neutral and less value-laden than we tend to assume. It just means doing anything well, excelling at something. And that might encompass a lot of different activity. Running 100 meters, for sure. Selling your app for a lot of money, okay. But also stranger, less heralded things, like listening a lot, very attentively to a child, or being extremely kind to strangers, or filling your mind with interesting ideas and associations, or knowing just when to put an arm around someone when it's too much for them. People who triumph here are also big success stories. No one can be successful at everything. Whatever they tell us, it's almost impossible to succeed with career and with family, or with popularity and integrity. There are always sacrifices. It's great to be successful. It's even better to make sure you followed your own distinctive and not necessarily always obvious path to the success that can truly fulfill you.
I've never seen 10,000 tapes in one store.
There's so much kid stuff.
And I can keep them for 3 evenings.
Now this is a video store.
Ordinary video stores don't even come close to Blockbuster Video. You've just got to see it to know what we mean.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, what a difference. Blockbuster Video.
Come discover the Blockbuster difference.
Well, hello there, Stephanie.
Wow, is that Steve? Are you actually with us today?
No, the question is, Stephanie, are you with us? Why is it always on me? Why is it always on me? Let's get this straight here. Why is it always on me?
Hey, our last session I had to have a stand-in. I had David come in. He did a good job. I mean, it wasn't you, but
Okay.
you know,
But it's your husband. You can't go with that.
I mean, right? I mean, I do. That is true.
There you go. See, this is a great time. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas,
Yes.
Happy New Year, all that good stuff. It's been
Yes,
it's been an
yes.
interesting few weeks. We just had a whirlwind. We just got back yesterday from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and now here we are back in Texas. And it got up to like 75 today, I think. So yeah, us celebrating New Year's Eve in Virginia at my sister-in-law's house. Had a little outdoor dance party, and the kids loved it. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Wow.
How about
So
you?
but you didn't make your way to New York, though. You know, we do this one show in New York, and then you stay away from me or whatever it is.
Not all the way up there yet. I'm still trying to get up there at some point. I have friends that I said goodbye to during the pandemic, and literally, we did one of those like bye waves from far away because we were still afraid to go near each other. So I definitely have to make it back up to New York soon.
Wow. Well, you know what? This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro here every day now. 2023. I see already a typo in the promo. It says 2022. So the first error that is there right there. But Chapters Community Support Services, we network, we support, we collaborate, we form a platform. We're a nonprofit program where unity and diversity meet one chapter at a time. As a psychologist, it's been important to me to bridge the gap for people that are going through transitions and adversities, but you also do important things. You're an author to a book. Tell our new viewers and listeners out there for 2023 what that book is all about.
Sure. So I am the toxic relationship recovery coach and expert. I specialize in helping women heal and thrive after toxic relationships. I wrote a book called Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, which is all about my story of overcoming the cycle of toxic relationships and the story of 3 other people who also were able to overcome their cycle of toxic relationships, because so many of us start from a childhood where we might not have learned the tools that we needed to create something healthy for ourselves as adults. And it's really important for us to know the right tools so that we can create something different for ourselves, no matter how old you are, no matter what you've experienced. I wrote this book to inspire other people to understand that they too can create their best lives. So definitely pick up a copy. Actually, if you go to my website, which is scrolling on underneath, I will send you a signed copy of my book and workbook for the same price that you could get it from Amazon. So definitely pick up a copy, and you can actually start doing some of the deep work yourself by getting those books.
That is great. And that's such a great book because you know what? There's a lot of relationships, especially during this ongoing pandemic, that have been challenged or there's violence. And we see it from time and time again. And you're able to connect with people from around the world about how to diffuse some of that, how to walk away from some of those relationships, but also create those unhealthy ones and hopefully make them healthy, correct?
Sure. I mean, one of the biggest things is that we want to not get into another one, because a lot of us, once we've gotten into one toxic relationship, our automatic is to get into another one. So in order to do something different, we have to react in a different way. So really specializing in helping people either, number one, leave that toxic relationship, because just the thought of leaving can be really difficult and overwhelming. Or once they're already out, really, how do I never get back in, and how do I really create the best for myself so that I can in turn either find a healthy relationship or be very happy being single?
Right. Well, you asked me what I did on New Year's, and my wife and I, we had 2 tickets to do nothing in the living room. And basically, it was just that. It was a battle just to stay awake till 12. And we did it. We played loads and loads of games of Scrabble. And she won a couple, I won a couple, but that's how it goes. My niece, Jaden, it's her 16th birthday. So we want to say happy birthday to Jaden. And she's a lovely young lady who does great in school. So her birthday is December 31st. So we always celebrate with her there. And recently, unfortunately, my daughter Angela was in a recent car accident, and she's on the mend. And everybody's been sending their prayers and thoughts, and we are so grateful for that. And I love my daughter Angela very much. And she just recently got married, and they bought a house, and this all happened to her. So, but God is good, because she is on the mend, and she's doing really well, and she's got a really supportive husband, Matthew. So very thankful for that. But as New Year's were unfolding, you know, we showed Blockbuster because we were watching some VHS movies. But then when they were over, I couldn't find one Blockbuster around. Are there any in Texas?
The last Blockbuster is in Oregon, I think. But I worked at Blockbuster. That was actually my first job other than babysitting. So like the first place that I worked at, like a corporate place, was Blockbuster. I worked there for a year and a half, and I was there while they were going from VHS to DVDs. And so, and at first it was like, are these DVD things going to last? You know? And so I just remember I loved my job at Blockbuster. It was really good for my personality because I liked saying hi to people. But one of the things that I think is really missing from getting videos nowadays is that I loved when customers would come to me and they could talk to me about what they liked. And because I had seen so many movies, I could give them suggestions of what they would like. So I love being able to interact with customers like that. And I miss that. I miss being able to go somewhere and having someone be like, hey, you should really watch this movie. You're going to really like it. These are all the reasons why you like these genres, whatever. I love that. Now you just have to, either somebody does tell you or that's seen it, or you have to read this really small blurb and try to figure out whether or not it's going to be a movie you'd actually like to watch.
See, I knew you back then because I was one of the guys on a Friday night. I would walk into Blockbuster after work and not knowing what movie to get or nothing. So I'd walk away with 5 VHS tapes, watching one of them, and then being late with the other 4 and sneak them in the mailbox there, and then having to pay a fee for that. So if I knew you back then, you would have saved me a lot of heartache and time.
I don't know. We didn't have much leeway on giving people freebies on anything. I mean, that was something they were really strict about, was making sure that people paid the late fees, unless, you know, sometimes it could get away with it, but they were really strict. That was the part that obviously was the demise of all of it, was that who wanted to go back? I mean, Friday night you pick up your movies. Saturday you go back and get another movie. I mean, we would always get like the kid movie and the adult movie, an adult meaning just for the parents, you know. And so you'd have those two different types of movies. And then Saturday would come around, you'd watch the movie, and then Sunday, like, who is rushing back on Sunday to go drop off those movies? Nobody wants to think about it. And then you had more time. You're like, oh, I'll just drop it off Monday. And now it's been another week and you have it until the next Friday again. So that was something that nobody liked.
But I was the guy at the register looking for that movie that everybody wanted, and it wasn't on the shelf. I was at the register, but then you would hear and see people dropping the tapes in the mailbox and hear it hit the bottom. And I would say, can you check that movie to see if that's not the movie? Can you check? Can you check? They used to hate me.
I remember those people.
Yeah, I was one of them. But you know what? We got a show to do. We could talk about Blockbuster the whole time here, but we have to send our thoughts and prayers to Damar, who is really, really battling his life now. Damar Hamlin, who was a safety for the Buffalo Bills. We all saw it unfold on Monday Night Football. He went into cardiac arrest, and they had to resuscitate him, and he's struggling for his life right now. And people around the world are supporting this young man, 24 years old. He's given back in such a big way. So our thoughts and blessings. You don't have to be a football fan, but this unbelievable person has the love of the world right now. So we're praying for him really hard.
I follow, you know, I'm not a sports fan, but we were driving back the first leg of our trip, and I saw someone. My husband was driving, and I was going through Facebook and saw someone post about. They just said, "What happened to Monday Night Football just now?" And then I read a few of the comments, and of course, I'm like, "All right, let me go see what's going on." So I did a little research, and of course, New York. So, my heart, obviously, New York right away got me more interested in finding out. And then hearing this poor kid, and as someone who's certified in CPR and used to train people for CPR, that the right angle, right hit can put someone in, can make your heart go out of whack. And so it's possible, but it's just not something that happens very often. But it does happen to high school sports kids that have no pre-existing conditions. So it's not completely unheard of, but it's not a common issue to have happen. So I'm glad they were able to resuscitate him. I'm glad they were able to bring him back. And I keep hoping that they're going to say, have a picture of him smiling and being wide awake, but it sounds like he's got a little bit of a road to recovery ahead of him.
Yeah, he's on a ventilator. I believe at this point in time, he's 50% of oxygen. I mean, it's we're all hurting around the world, but when you see that unfold with families and kids watching Monday Night Football is a big game, and when you see and you hear the story of this young man, how he's given of his life, he's got beautiful family. So we're praying for him really hard. And actually, our guest is a nurse, so we've got to ask her about this situation when she comes on. But before we get to that, what's some of your New Year's resolutions? Or can you give me one New Year's resolution there, Steph?
My New Year's resolution is just to really focus on serving as many people as I possibly can, is to really up-level my business and get what we do out there to really help other people up-level their lives and really create the best for themselves.
That's wonderful. And I owe a lot to you and everything that we're doing for the last couple of years, because you helped me pivot a couple of years back, and I'm still pivoting. So my goal is to utilize all the good things heard over the last year or so, and to evaluate the challenges, but to make it stronger, to build on that, so that what you just said, to help others, empower others. And I think that's what it's all about. And the show that we have here week after week, and that's pretty much what we do, is to empower and to support others in difficult situations, because a lot of people are less fortunate than we are, but I believe we have a responsibility to bridge that gap and to help others through any kind of adversity.
Whatever we can do to inspire. I mean, no matter what you've experienced, no matter what you've been through, if we know that someone might have been in something similar and they're able to thrive, I think that really motivates others to say, hey, maybe it's possible for me. And sometimes that's all you need, is that little bit of hope to get you to where you want to be.
And, before the year was out, we lost 3 unbelievable people. I think if you could put 3 people together that changed the face of the world that we lost, these 3 people are probably on that list. We lost the Pope, that really set the tone spiritually, internationally, for so many people. And I know he's up in age, but the work that he did was unbelievable. We lost him. We lost Barbara Walters, who was a pioneer for women. And she was a reporter, and she interviewed all the different presidents through from Nixon to the current presidency. So her work, she opened up a lot of doors for women. And we also lost soccer great Pele, who came over from Brazil, who was not just about soccer. He preached love. I mean, it wasn't just on the soccer field. When he came to New York as a Cosmo back in the 70s, he opened up the eyes of a lot of young people to play soccer. But then when the game was over, he would support so many people in a loving way, giving food or being there to speak or to go into that were not privileged to have the benefits that a lot of these families have and our families have. So losing Barbara Walters, the Pope, and Pele within a week's time was a big hit for the world. But their legacies will last forever.
Yeah. I found out about Pele as we were driving. I saw a big billboard, and I was like, and again, not a sports person, but I'm like, I know that name. Wait, what happened? And so again, like finding out these things as we're going, and somebody suggested for him to pass away, Barbara Walters, the Pope. I mean, like you said, those are some really influential people that we had that we had in our lifetime that really have changed the world.
So, Stan, what if I told you we have a special guest today that's written a children's book? She empowers women. She's a nurse. She does every work, and she overcame a domestic violence situation back in the day. What would you say if we had a guest like that?
That would be awesome, because that's like everything that we love. All of those things. That's amazing.
And that's why I do what I do, because I bring these people onto our show. But you do that too. So it's very important to bring people like us to bring it to the fold so that they could share their story. And we're going to share Diane's story, and we're going to bring her back. Diane Curley's story. She's an author. She's overcome domestic violence, but she also empowers women in a big way. Let's check out this little video and bring Diane onto the set.
Some days I just don't have it, and I feel the weight of it, the pressure to perform, to achieve, to be something more, to succeed. Success seems elusive. Failure surrounds me, again, as if everything I've already done is not enough, as if it's never going to be enough, as if I am not enough. We've all felt this way at some time, because as women, we face a lot of pressure to succeed in our businesses, on our jobs, with our relationships, for our family, and throughout our lives. We are judged by others for it, and we judge ourselves by it. Success. But just what is success? How is success defined? Is there one definition of success? And who decides? Me? You? Society? Is it wealth, beauty, fame? Or is it credentials, titles, achievements, power, possessions, some combination thereof, or something else altogether? Is it attainable? It is exhausting. But what if we redefine success? What if the definition of success included our impact? And what if the definition of success aligned with our values? What if success was defined by all the moments and not the momentum or the money? What if success was not measured by what society says about us, and instead was measured by what God says about us? Could it be that we are actually more successful than we think? With all of these questions going around in my mind, I decided to develop a framework for understanding what success means to me. So using the word success as an acronym, I can easily share with you the concepts for you to discover a new way of thinking and redefine success for yourself.
So, Stephanie, what is success? I know it's a journey. It's not a destination. So we brought Diane Curley here to help us out with this. And Diane, welcome to Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you too.
Here.
So we met just a couple of weeks ago, and I was interviewing a bunch of authors, and she was one of the authors. And during the interview, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we were talking, and I mentioned the fact that I do counseling and give out toys to women and children in a domestic violence shelter in the Bronx, which we shared on the show ongoing. And for the first time, Diane shared that she overcame a domestic violence situation when she was younger for the first time ever in public. And she's written books, children's books, celebrating women, planner, and journals. She's empowering. She's a nurse, but that was the first time, correct, Diane?
Correct.
Why did you feel the urge to bring it to the forefront at that time?
I just think that that day, that conversation that we had, opened up an opportunity for me to share publicly something that I never shared before, but could potentially help others. And it's a difficult subject to talk about, but we need to talk about it and destigmatize it and move forward in a healthy way.
Wow, I was so humbled by that because it took me back. And then immediately I thought, okay, I got to tell this to Stephanie. Stephanie is the person, and she's really going to really connect with you because of what she shared for the first time, Steph. I mean, you're getting people, you're trying to work with people that have difficulty acknowledging any kind of changes or violent situations or unhealthy relationships. But she came out and said that after all the great work that she does. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, that's the type of women that I work with, is that there's so many successful women who have been in toxic relationships, but because we are so good at keeping all the balls in the air and pretending and having a bit of a facade at times because we think we can handle it and we don't want anyone to be worried about us. So I'm not surprised at all. I am sorry that, of course, that happened for you, Diane, but it's not surprising to me that just another successful woman has experienced this type of toxicity.
Diane, for people that didn't see that show, I wanted to bring you on this show because of the work that Stephanie does. Can you take us back at that moment? I know that you just celebrated with your husband a 25-year anniversary.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know we have some beautiful pictures we're going to post up there in a second, but you overcame that relationship back then. How did you do that? And what are some of the things that you went through?
Well, how I overcame it was by recognizing that I could love this person and leave anyway. There are people that I talk to, they say, but I love him. I want to work it out. And my whole thing was, yes, I do love this person, but this is not healthy for me. It's not healthy for our child. And I'm leaving. And it was really that clear. It was really that clear to me. I think the impetus for me was the fact that I had a child. I left a week before Christmas. He's when he was 8 months old, with nothing. I just left with the baby and me. And that was really my source of strength, was knowing that I did not want to raise my child in this environment. I make that statement with no judgment for what other women are going through. But for me at that time, over 30 years ago, that was the impetus. I didn't want to I wanted to be in love, and I was in love, but I didn't want to be in an unhealthy relationship or raise my child in one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I love that you said, so you've been married for 25 years to your current husband. And,
Yes.
I think it's really important for viewers to really hear that, is that had she not left and stayed in that unhealthy relationship, you wouldn't have gotten to experience the beautiful life you have with your husband. And I think that's such a thing that people, that when they're in the toxic relationship, they're not thinking about the possibility of what could be. They're just thinking about, oh, I love this person. I want to try to make it work. I don't give up. I'm going to keep trying. And once you get married, you stay married. All those things maybe come up in someone's head. But look at now, you've had all this time in between. and or in between or after, I should say. And I mean, just it's the beauty of it, of knowing that you gave yourself this life instead of trying to stay stuck and making something that wasn't working work.
Yeah, I learned that I could not save this person. I'm not capable of saving anyone, but I could save myself. And I just kept that with me. And, you know, to this day, I love pretty freely, you know, and that's okay. But giving myself permission to leave somebody that I loved, because we did try many, many, many times, and he tried very hard too, to overcome, you know, addiction and substance abuse and illness, and those things that sort of fuel the fire in some of toxic relationships, at least in my experience, in my relationship that I was in. The toxicity was fueled by addiction and substance abuse, etc. So for him, and so we tried counseling, we tried AA, he tried inpatient rehabs, he tried outpatient rehabs. None of this was working. So there came a time where I said, you know what? I do love him, but I'm choosing to save myself. And that was as simple as it was. And I never really looked back.
And save your son. I mean,
yes. And my son was at that time not harmed in the relationship. However, I could see that could come to pass. And I could see, even if my ex, who at the time was my husband, didn't harm my son physically or emotionally or verbally the way he was harming me, I knew the effect that could have on my son, just seeing that. You can't hide that. You just can't hide it.
I work with so many clients that stayed with their husbands, thinking they were doing a good job of protecting their kids from it. And I now have clients who I now work with their children, and the children are like, you think we didn't see what was going on? We knew, we heard what was going on behind closed doors. And now those kids, I'm trying to help them heal so that they don't fall into unhealthy relationships themselves. Yeah. I mean, some of them are even afraid to get into relationships. So yeah, I mean, I really commend you on being able to leave, again, not only for yourself, but for your son as well.
Yeah. And, you know, I know he felt the absence of his father. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said for that. Mm-hmm. But hopefully through his lifetime with therapy and things like that and the loving guidance my husband and I have provided, hopefully he, he's 33 now, found his way to love and being a wonderful husband and father himself. But it was not without his own struggles of feeling the loss of his father, even though I told him every night and that his father loved him. It was really, Daddy loves you. Daddy has a disease. Mm-hmm. Daddy cannot be here for you the way he wishes he could be. Now, whether that was true or not was not my concern. Mm-hmm. My concern was that that's what my son knew to be true.
Right.
I never gave my son any indication other than his father loved him and loved me, right, but was not capable because of illness and disease and substance use, et cetera, from a very early age.
Right. So. This is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. Our special guest today, Diane Curley. She's talking about her her toxic abusive relationship that took place many years ago that you overcame protect yourself, your son. But Stephanie, I ask you, is that the percentage of women that you're working with can do that? What Diane just mentioned, or does it take time? And the whole counseling bit, sometimes the person afflicting the violence or the negativity in the relationship, the abusiveness, doesn't really go to counseling, right?
Yeah, I mean, we specialize really in the ones that are looking to get out of the relationship and those who are looking to recover after they leave. So luckily I don't have to deal with that part, but I do remember when I was in my own abusive relationship that there were times where I actually had my ex brought up on charges, and then when the court would come, I would drop the charges and protect him. And so, like, for the therapy perspective and people in law enforcement and things like that get a little frustrated because they're trying to help women it tends to be more women that are in these relationships. That happens to men too, but just statistically more women. But there is a lot of people that want to help, but a lot of times the help is really just empowering the woman to a point where she can make the right steps for herself and her family and actually follow through with it, realizing that it's not her getting him in trouble. It's him getting himself in trouble. It's him doing it. He's just getting consequences for the behavior. Because, I mean, there was one time where my ex spent, I think it was a week in jail, and his family reached out to me and said, he's going to lose his job and it's all your fault. And I felt really bad, but it wasn't my fault. I was just giving him consequences for the bad behavior he was having towards me. So it really, again, the fact that you were able to leave and say, this just isn't right for me or my child, give you a lot of credit, because for a lot of people, it takes a lot of support, a lot of guidance, a lot of just, therapy and all of that to make them decide to actually leave, and then to be able to find a healthy relationship afterwards. You are doing really good things with your ability to do that. So I definitely commend you.
Thank you. One thing was, I had a role model. I had a girlfriend who was the same age as me. We were best friends in high school. And she was married to a wonderful human being, somebody I knew from high school. They were childhood sweethearts and they got married, And I would see their relationship and I would say, oh, that's really nice. I'd like a relationship like that instead of the relationship that I have.
Right.
So it wasn't a friend that sat down to me and said, why don't you leave him, this, that, or the other thing? It was a friend that was there and they were modeling this behavior unbeknownst to them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And for this reason, that was one of the big reasons, was I had people around me that modeled that. My own parents modeled a loving, stable relationship. My friends had stable relationships. There might have been some love there, but there was nothing stable about it. Yeah. It was abusive. And I think that I've never really come to terms with talking about it publicly because I never wanted to hurt him the way he hurt me.
But Stephanie, isn't the abuser, don't they want to disconnect, have the other person disconnect from friends and family and ice them just within themselves so they can continue this inappropriate, abusive, toxic behavior?
Sure. I mean, they pull us away from relationships, but also one of the reasons why they're so able to do that is because, unlike Diane, a lot of people also have friends and family that are in the not healthiest of relationships. So if, like, you were lucky that you were surrounded by people that actually were in loving, stable relationships, but a lot of, like, for me, I'd look around and I'd be like, wow, I mean, things are bad for me, but there's bad for this person and this person. And, I could point out all the people that were just as screwed up and seemed even more so than I was in their relationships. And I was like, oh, at least it's not as bad as what they're dealing with, So, I think that's a big part. You were very, that was a very lucky thing that you were able to have that type of support, and that you knew to hold on to those people and not allow what was going on with him to totally bring you into his disease and remove you from your friends and family.
Yeah, it's and every woman's story is different. I don't think that it's easy to generalize.
Right.
At least I wouldn't. You're the expert. You have the statistics. But
Mhm.
from my point of view, I can only share my story and what I went through. And I think that's one of the reasons why I never talked about it publicly was because I was like, I know I wouldn't want to hurt anybody the way I was hurt.
Right.
That sounds so. It's not a matter of protecting him. It's my desire not to hurt anybody.
Mhm. Mhm. But one of the things that's really and I'm glad that you say that. And I think that for a lot of people, for me too, I was the first time I ever shared my story of what I experienced, I was so worried about hurting him. And then of course, he was not happy that I shared the story and told me I was a liar, that none of it was true. But an interesting thing has happened in the 10 years since I got a divorce. And that is, I've had many of his exes reach out to me through my Facebook group saying, hey, thank you for sharing what you share, because I just dated him, or, over the years. I just dated him. I just ended this relationship, and he's exactly the same. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I read your book or I watched one of your videos or, whatever. So it kind of made it so that for me, I thought, you know what? If he's hurt by it, that's not my problem anymore. He's got to do his own work. He's got his own stuff to deal with. But for me, sharing my story was not about hurting him or doing anything for him. It was about empowering me to say, I don't have to keep this secret. I don't have to, keep this under wraps. And the more people that I can share it with, the more people can be inspired that they don't have to live with it. Just like what you're doing today. I think people hearing, and I can't wait to get into all the other great stuff you've done since, but hearing that story of like, oh my gosh, someone who could have been stuck and trapped there, you not only overcame it, but you soared. I mean, you're doing really great things now.
Yeah, and before we get to that, this is Kick on Healthy Relationships at the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail. I'm Steve Vaccaro. I'm going to ask both of you, and we have Diane Curley here, our special guest. We're talking about her prior abusive relationship many years ago. I'm going to ask both of you. You both are happily married over a long period of time now. Stephanie and Diane, your husbands now, were they really supportive from day one? Stephanie, you first.
One of the first times that my then boyfriend, actually, we were out, and my ex-husband told me he was going to come to the house, and I told him not to. And my ex-husband caused a huge scene and tried to get my now husband to leave. And instead of there being anything, my now husband, David, just came over to me. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, you can't speak to Stephanie that way. And, basically told him, which is very calm and easygoing about it. My ex-husband lost his temper, like threatened him all sorts of different ways, and then drove off. And then he never bothered us again. But I thought in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to leave. He's not going to want to date someone with a crazy ex who's like stalking me and driving by my house and whatever. But the good guy stuck around, luckily, and actually stuck up for me, which is I needed someone to be able to do that other than just myself. And so he stuck up, he put up with it for a little bit. And I really appreciate that.
What about you, Diane?
Yeah, my husband to this day is supportive, because I think some of my behaviors, like nightmares, that I wake up in the middle of the night screaming and carrying on, because I was having flashbacks and nightmares about it. And then in the beginning, my ex tried to continue his abusive behavior towards me. And we found ways together to put a stop to that. And the police, did help us in that regard. But yes, he was very loving and supportive and is to this day, not just for that, but for everything that I do.
Sure. And Stephanie, he's in the studio watching this whole thing live. So I can attest to what she's just saying.
Hey, I mean, my
25 years
husband and I
in
work together now. I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
the fact your husband's listening to this has probably heard some of the stuff before. I mean, my husband still to this day, when I start going into more details about my story, he still cries. I mean, and this literally, this is what we do. So it's hard. It's hard to know someone you love has experienced all of that.
I'm so happy as TV host, we have a healthy relationship. This is really good stuff. So anyway, but seriously, you're a nurse.
Mhm.
You did missionary work. You're an author. Talk about all the great things that you're doing. And when you're traveling to another country to help others, where's that come from? How's your faith in all of this?
Yeah, so I've been a nurse for probably 30 years. A lot of things happened 30 years ago, I guess. Yeah, so after I left my first husband, I managed to go through nursing school and become a nurse and work and full time. And then as I was raising my children, I was able to devote some time to giving back to the community. And I've traveled to Liberia during the Ebola epidemic, Ethiopia several times, Greece during the Syrian refugee crisis, the U.S. southern border during one of those surges that we had, the Bahamas during Hurricane Dorian, many, many mission trips, all medically based, but all backed up or rooted in loving and serving others to love and serve God. It's just I feel like I've got these gifts of being a nurse. They're gifts, and those gifts allowed me to raise my son as a single mother for many years, allowed me to provide for our family together over the years, and allows me to help and heal people all over the world. And like I say, out of love for God and service to God, I love and serve others because that's what my faith calls me to do.
Wow. Doesn't get better than that, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, I love it. That's that calling that you can't ignore, right?
You can't. And sometimes when I'm called, my husband will shake me up a little bit and say, honey, is this God calling you or is this you? And then I'll have to do some prayerful consideration and determine whether it truly is God calling me to love and serve or if it's me. Because I have a very strong fight or flight response. And I would love nothing more than to travel all over the world and love and serve and love and serve and love and serve. And then there's times where I need to be grounded and pray about it and realize that I need to love and serve right here at home.
And Stephanie, we've talked about this on our show. That's where that balance comes in a relationship, in a healthy relationship, right?
Yep.
It's kind of a check and balance system between the two people involved in that relationship.
Sure. And that healthy communication to be able to share, to be able to, that's one of the things that I knew I wanted in a relationship was someone to be able to call me out if I was being over the top, kind of like what you're talking about with your husband, but do it in a respectful way that didn't make me feel bad about myself. And I think in other relationships, I didn't have that second piece. But now with my husband, David, if I'm questioning something or I get frustrated, he'll listen if that's what I'm looking for. If I need advice, he'll give me advice. But it's really sometimes where it's like, have you thought about it this way? Because you're this, you're acting this way, or you're, whatever it is. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. And sometimes I'm like, nope, that's not what it is. But, it's nice to have someone that you trust to be able to call you out sometimes and get you to kind of rethink things and see it from a different perspective.
Wow. I mean, it's fascinating the work that you do. And when we first met, I was asked to interview, when we first met, you were an author. I was asked to interview you on the book that you were launching. And now after almost 3 years, we have this show now, only one together. So I got to read into that a little bit. Why only one show together? But we'll figure that one out.
It's a long distance relationship.
I see that. But when I was talking to Diane, I realized, she's an author, but she's way more than that. But talk about your children's book that you came out with.
So I wrote a children's book called Asleep at Last. It's based on a story I used to tell my children after reading them many books at night. they still didn't want to go to sleep. So I told them his story. It was like a joyful little adventure through the alphabet. And it talks about what other animals, sea life, birds, etc., insects are doing during the day, which is all well and good and fun, just like children want to have fun all day. But then there's this time for sleep. And I would talk to them about the other animals and the other creatures in life. Now they're sleeping. So it's time for you to sleep too. It's okay for you to go to sleep. Playtime is over, kind of thing, but in a gentle way. And I always wanted to publish a story. So my youngest is 20, and I finally did it. I finally made it into a book.
Wow. And we have a little testimony about this, but we have a little somebody critiquing her book, a young person, right?
Yeah, Stanley in the United Kingdom, he started doing this during COVID, reading books to children over the internet and reviewing some books. So Stanley read my book and did a little promo.
Video.
Yeah.
Let's check out Stanley.
Hi everyone, tonight I am reviewing Asleep at Last. Based on a story the author told her own children to encourage rest and naps, especially at bedtime. You are invited to join this joyful adventure through the alphabet with your child. And together you will giggle and learn all about the playful nature of insects, sea life and birds and animals at play, and also see the silly ways they fell asleep. Bye!
Aw.
Isn't that great? I got an idea. I think you need one of her books for your kids, and she needs one of your books for her. What do you think?
Sure. The sleepy time routine. I have a 6-year-old, almost 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And so sometimes that's sleep at last. So you're like, when is it happening? Because I need to go to bed so that I can have more of mommy time.
It's funny because I was told when I did this interview with Diane a couple of weeks ago, I was told about the children's book. And then she came up with these other books for the interview. So not only was it the one book, not only was it the domestic violence situation, but she wrote this book celebrating women, planner and journal. So talk about your connection with women and the inspiration you give others and the empowerment that you do.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this. It's really important to me. About 5 years ago, I started interviewing other women, a written interview, and posting their stories to my blog and 8 social media platforms. It wasn't 8 in the beginning, but it grew to be 8 social media platforms, really amplifying women's voices and visibility. And the women got asked the same 4 questions, but the last question was to share something that would inspire and encourage another woman or young girl. And what I did was I took those quotes from those interviews, chose 52 of them from the, I've interviewed about 70 women, and I chose 52 of their quotes, included them in this weekly planner and journal, which also included the standard weekly, monthly, daily planner, accountability sheets, journaling prompts, etc. But the most important piece was those quotes from those women in this planner and journal, inspiring other women and young girls. And they're attributed in this planner and journal. Those quotes are attributed to them through the interviews that I did.
So did you set out to did you think that was going to unfold that way? No, my
vision was to just do the blog. And I wanted to get to 365 interviews. And then I wanted to publish a devotional. And my friend said, Diane, this is a lot of work and you're doing so well, but don't wait to get those 365 interviews. Do something in the meantime. And that was my good friend and soul sister, May, that recommended that to me. And then I said, okay, what could I do in the meantime? And then this is what I came up with. In the meantime, I can do this and still amplify these women's voices, still share their stories in another way besides the blog. So that's how this was born. And then I did a magazine in 2021 I chose 21 of the interviews, and I highlighted those 21 women in a magazine format with their entire interview and their pictures.
So usually about 45 minutes into our shows, I feel the need to do more with our guests that we have. Like I'm feeling a little inferior right now because I feel like I should be writing books, doing the things that she does. It's amazing. I know. I mean, I didn't ask you, Stephanie. I know your reaction would be.
Hey, Steve, where's your book?
It's coming out. Yeah, real soon. All right, Steph. I wasn't going to ask you that question, but what do you think of what she's doing?
I mean, amazing, really, really amazing stuff. I love that you feel the calling and do it. Sometimes we hear that voice and we're like, we try to ignore it, like we shush it. And so I'm really happy to hear that you are listening to it and just the empowerment of being able to do that, you know, to have someone who's supportive, to be able to have the time and the energy to do all this great work. I mean, again, that says a lot about you as a person and leaving that mark on the world. And, you know, I always think you want to leave the world better, a little bit better than how you found it. And I think that you're really living that. You're exemplifying, you know, that person that's really leaving their mark in a positive way.
Thank you.
You know, we talked about success. We showed a little video at the beginning. I asked you what success was. Diane, you talked about success in the video clip that we showed. Talk about what is success for you and how can people out there during this pandemic, during this challenging, adverse time in the world, be successful? What does that mean?
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. I had to totally redefine what success meant and stop looking at how society defines success, especially for women. They love to decide, you know, that, you know, our beauty, our wealth, you know, things like that. And, you know, those things can be fleeting. And I thought about it a little bit deeper. And I said, you know, success is really about our connection to others. Success is about our impact on society. It's about our ability to simplify our lives and enjoy what we have. And success is about relationships and connection. And like you said, you know, leaving somebody else's life a little bit better, you know, leaving a legacy for others to learn from and help them along the way.
Right. I often ask my students in the school setting success, and I hear money, fame, you know, cars, houses, this kind of stuff. But there's a little percentage that says exactly what you're saying. And I try to bring those kids out to share that feeling for the other people that are being more, looking at those other items that are really not successful, that are more tangible. But would you agree with what Diane just mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I actually just had this conversation with my sister-in-law, and that we hold in such high reverence people that are successful because of money and fame and all that kind of stuff. But really successful is being happy, being a good mom to my children, you know, being happily married, being able to help others on a bigger scale. I mean, that to me really is more successful than any fame or fortune could ever give me.
Wow. This is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. That's Stephanie McPhail, Steve Vaccaro, Diane Curley. How can people get a hold of your books or contact you and the work that you're doing? I'm sure there's lots of women out there. You guys got to connect because you know a lot of people. She knows a lot of people. I think between the two of you, you're going to know more people. But how can people get a hold of you and your books?
So the books are available on Amazon, and because they're the #1 bookseller still to this day. And you can get in touch with me on my website. It's simple. It's just my name, www.dianecurley.com. And I have a form on there that you can just connect with me on very easily. I check my email frequently through that venue. And I'm still interviewing women for the Celebrating Women project. And there's a form on the website also where you can connect. Every woman is invited to participate because every woman is a role model.
I nominate Stephanie. I want her to interview you.
Thanks, Steve.
There you go. On live TV. There we go. But I mean, it's needed. And I think our young people, you said, to pass it down to their children. I heard you say the same thing, Stephanie. and the work that I do, it's about helping those in need right now, but setting the tone or teaching kids that maybe from dysfunctional families, for families that are broken up, teaching them the right ways of doing it, have dinner together as families, to develop better study habits, to not really look at role models as actors or actresses, but really what's going on around you. I think we really need to treat our children well, but to teach them too, right?
Yeah. And also, I think, giving them that foundation in faith, whatever faith means to you, the audience, to give them a foundation in faith. Because for me, what really I think saved my life was knowing that I was not alone, that I had God with me. Even when I felt alone, I knew the Lord was with me. Even in my suffering, the Lord was with me. Yes. And I think as I got older, I came to define my own success in that my identity in Christ, not my identity in being a nurse,
right,
or my identity in being a mom. Even I had to let go of that. My identity in being a wife or a mother, it had to be more than that,
right,
to feel really always loved and successful.
I mean, that's such a need. Faith and religion and stability are important for every child. But I ask you, 2023 just started. What's some of your goals in 2023?
Yeah, so I decided not to make a resolution. I decided not to pick a word. I decided to just continue to live deeply in my faith and enjoy the gifts of those faith. Hope, peace, love, grace, forgiveness. Just continue to live my faith deeply so that I can enjoy those gifts.
Diane Curley, we were flashing her website on the bottom, so if you want to contact her, get a hold of her books, Celebrating Women, Planet Journal, Asleep at Last. These are books that are very important to our young and also for women out there. And Stephanie, another great guest. And we have some dynamite guests coming up, right? I know we have one really spectacular person coming on real soon, right?
Sure. We actually have someone coming in from Australia who, excuse me.
God bless you. Whoa.
He'll be waking up bright and early to come with us live from Australia next week. And he talks about kind of the unhealthy relationship we have with money. And really his focus is going to be helping, especially women who have been in these toxic relationships, relearn their relationship with money so that they can create something better for themselves. So I love having all these wonderful guests, all these great insights coming in. And, if anybody that's watching knows someone that they think would be a good fit for the show, feel free to reach out and let us know. I mean, we're always looking for new people. We love spreading the word of people who are doing great things. We want to give you a platform to share those things. And, of course, we always appreciate you coming in and tuning in every week and hanging out with us every Wednesday and Friday on cable.
That's right, on Friday on cable. Well, Stephanie, another great show in the books. Thank you so very much. You almost went the whole show without sneezing. We just got the very end. I don't know what's in the air in Texas, but God bless you and your family. Tell David we said Happy New Year. Thank you for all the great work that you do. And Diane Curley, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Mm-hmm.